Hi everyone, this is Eldad Amara back with another video, and this is my channel, Eyes Wide Shut. And if you like this channel, you know what to do. I want you to like, comment, subscribe and share. Hit that like button. Hit that like button at the bottom of the page, and don't forget to switch on your notification bell. That way every time I drop a new video you will be notified of this. Now listen, this is part 1 of this video. I want to ask you this: whose narratives are you following? Are you following the narratives of the elite, or are you following your own narratives? Whose narratives are you following? Are you following your own narratives, or are you following the narratives of the elite? It's time to get on the yellow brick road. Now, there's only 1% of the world's population controlling the other 99. There's an elite group of people on this earth, and they are controlling the other 99% of us. They own the means of production. They have the instruments of power, and they have all these things in their favors. So your political institutions, your laws, legislation, your scientists, your scientific institutions, your banks, all of these things are owned and controlled by an elite group of people. Your social media, which is your television, your radio, your social media platforms, they are all owned and controlled by an elite few groups of people. When you turn on your TV, when you watch the news, do you ever hear any good news? Tell me that. Do you ever hear any good news? Most of the time when you're watching the news, it's talking about wars over here and wars over there. They talk about terrorism. Listen to the word terrorism. Listen to the word crisis when they say housing crisis or food crisis. What does that conjure up in your mind? You see, they like to keep people in fear, because if they keep people in fear, then they can keep people in control. Once they can keep people in fear, they have control of your mind. The news, they're very clever when it comes to using language, and it's usually done through their psychologists. Yeah? And note that the newsreaders tend to follow a script, and the script is usually written by somebody else. So they use these key words because they know how it's going to create a certain emotion within you. So when they use the words such as crisis, such as terrorism, when they use the word refugees, what does that conjure up inside of your mind? These people are very clever when it comes to words, and the words are spells. They cast spells by using certain words, key words. And as I say again, they use the psychologists when they are creating things like the news and also adverts. Who's controlling your narratives? Are you controlling your own narratives, or is it the elite that is controlling your narratives? Are you controlling your narratives, or is it the elite controlling your narratives? It's time to get on the yellow brick road. What do I mean by the yellow brick road? Have any of you ever seen the film The Wizard of Oz? In The Wizard of Oz, you have a character called Dorothy, and she gets onto the yellow brick road. She's trying to find her way back home, but she's told by a good witch not to come off of the yellow brick road and to head for Emerald City. And there she would find the Wizard of Oz, and the Wizard of Oz would help her to find her way back home to Kansas City. Now listen, a lot of trials and tribulations happen to Dorothy while she's on that yellow brick road. When she comes across people such as the Tin Man, she comes across, I think it's a straw man, yeah, and a lion, and they also want the wizard to be able to try and change things for them. yeah, to try and help them. Now the help they thought was in the hands of the wizard and not in the hands of themselves. Dorothy was going to the Wizard of Oz to try and see if the Wizard of Oz could help her to get back home. But check this out. The real power was with Dorothy herself. Because when she got to Emerald City and met the Wizard of Oz, the Wizard of Oz said there was nothing that he could do to help her. He was hid behind some facade, behind some big screen, pulling all these knobs and strings. Just like how we have our political institutions, and we have our prime ministers and our presidents, and they're pulling the strings, right? Pulling our strings. But behind them, they've got someone pulling their strings, okay? They're not really the true people in power. They're just puppets for someone else. Dorothy come to realize, because when her dog went behind the back of the screen and saw the wizard pulling all of these strings, and he was just a facade. The real power lied with Dorothy. She had self-actualization that when the mask came off, she realized that it was her who had the power and not the wizard. He was just an ordinary man pulling the string. And that's what we have in society right now. We have a group of people and they're pulling our strings. They've got us in formation, right? They've got us in formation. They've got us in control, right? Through their information. They got us in line. The Wizard of Oz, he wasn't really the person who had the power. The real power lie with Dorothy. When the mask came off, as I say again, when that mask came off, she realized that she was the one that had the power, not the wizard. The elite on this earth, they've been trying to control us for the longest of times, and we have been following their narratives, just like the wizard of Oz. He was controlling people through fear, okay? Through a facade, and people could not see through that. But Dorothy, in the end, did. Now, the true power lies with us, and not with the elite, because they only make up 1% of the world's population. But because they have the instruments of power, they can control us. Now, just like Dorothy on the road, the yellow brick road, she was told not to come off of it. And when she got to Oz, yeah, she found self-actualization. There's a guy called Abraham Maslow. Abraham Maslow. Now, some of you may have heard of him, right? I think it was some kind of psychologist. Look here. Let me try and get this in line. Now, at the top of the pyramid, self-actualization. But for us, the people who are at the top of this pyramid are the elite. They're at the top of the pyramid. But if we get to that top of that pyramid, we have self-actualization. Self-actualization. That the power really lies with us. The power lies with us. There's certain things that we need before we reach the self-actualization. This is my interpretation of Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You have your basic needs and your basic wants. And then you want things like shelter. You want clothing. You want warmth before you start moving up the pyramid to the next level. Okay? So on this pyramid, you have biological and physiological needs. Then you have safety. As you move up the pyramid. So once you've conquered biological and physiological needs, you then move up to safety. And then from safety, you move up to love and belonging. And from there, you move up to esteem. You move up to self-esteem. And then from self-esteem, you move up the pyramid to the very top to self-actualization. This is what Dorothy, I believe, had. Self-actualization when she got to Emerald City and met the Wizard of Oz. The true power lie within her, not within the wizard. We, as people, we're so dependent on the elite to clothe us, to feed us, to look after us. You think I'm talking rubbish? Well, where do you go for your food? To a supermarket, yeah? You go to the supermarket in order to get your food. What if that was cut off? You depend on electricity and gas. You depend on electricity and gas to keep you warm. Who's supplying that? Who is supplying that? Your mobile phone, where you have so much data on there and you're always on your phone, you pay your bills from your phone. Who is in control of that? Are you? If you think that you're in control of that, if the satellite was to go down, yeah, or pylons, would you be able to pay for your bills? We are so dependent on these institutions. What some people say, no, I do have my own freedom. But do they really? There's so many people who are dependent on the system and not trying to reach their higher self. Many people are locked down in their lower selves. Now, as I say, there are many people who are locked down on that third dimension, which is a lower frequency. But as you start to move up, in frequency and reach to your higher self, you leave that material self behind. And many of us are still vibrating on our lower frequency and not on our higher self. Now let me show you a diagram. It sounds like I'm just ranting and just going on. The people who are in charge of us, who own and control us, know about these various different frequencies. Okay, and they try and keep us in our lower vibrational self. They want us to live in fear. They want to continuously own and control us and have us keep coming back to them for things, for our house, for our clothing, for our food, for our shelter, for protection. Now let me read these frequencies. At the very bottom, you have shame, which is only on a 20 hertz frequency. Then you have guilt, which is on a 30 hertz frequency. Then you have apathy, which is on a 50 hertz frequency. Then you have grief, which is on a 75 hertz frequency. Then you have fear, which is on a 100 hertz frequency. Then you have desire, which is on a 125 hertz frequency. Then anger, which is on a 150 degrees frequency. Okay? And you just move up through the frequencies until you reach love, which is 500 hertz frequency. Joy, 540 hertz frequency. Peace, 600 degrees frequency. Yeah? And enlightenment, which is on a hertz of 700 hertz frequency. So, in order to become enlightened, in order for us to become enlightened, we need to move up through frequencies, okay, until we reach our higher self. But those in control want us to stay on our lower vibrational self. Many of us don't really know ourselves because we're following the narratives of somebody else. In order for us to become like Dorothy and to reach self-actualization, we have to start trying to do for ourselves. Whose narratives are you following? Are you following your own narratives, Or are you following the narratives of the elite? It's time to get on the yellow brick road. Now this is part 1 of this video, and part 2 to come shortly. This is Eldad Amara, over and out.